More than 30 years ago, Dr. James Lynch was in this country, publicising his book called The Broken Heart. And he kept quoting a line that we all know. We knew it long before he mentioned it. Love your neighbour as yourself. He said, this is not just a moral mandate, not only a religious injunction, it is a physiological truth. Caring is biological. Caring is woven into the social, connective fabric of our lives. And he said this, the more connected you are, the healthier you are. But cancer, the topic of our thinking today, cancer is a disease that threatens our vital connectedness with life, with others, and even with ourselves. Cancer comes in many forms, carrying many messages, many reminders, but always with anxiety. Cancer comes to children and the elderly, to the physically fit and to the overweight, always with anxiety. Cancer comes to those who have taken care of their health all their life. And it also comes to those who've smoked and boozed and pigged out, yet it always comes with anxiety. David Agris, a cancer specialist, wrote his book, The End of Illness. And he said he constantly receives calls from people anxious about their persistent fatigue, their feelings that something is not right. And he said they ask me questions to ease their anxiety that cancer is not to blame for their apparent fatigue and other symptoms. The anxiety, will I die of this cancer? How will I live with this cancer? How will people live with me? How will people live without me? And the anxiety may go further. If only I had lived a more healthy lifestyle. If only I had not worked in that particular industry. If only I had acted sooner. The anxiety may go even deeper. Why did this happen to me and not to the 35 other people who were working in the same industry? Why did the cancer hit me in this particular part of my body? Why is it occurring now at this time? At this time when my children need me, when I've just retired, when I've just remarried. You see, this word cancer, people often say it is not a life sentence. That's true. But it carries, the word and the experience carries with it anxiety. And whether we get the disease, have the disease, or once had the disease, we will know other people who have had it. And that's why it's so important that we dwell on it today, to see what we can say about it, for ourselves and for others, for the now and the future. The latest edition of New Scientist has a special issue this time, which it says, what is reality? You woke up one morning and you discovered a lump. It was not there the day before. Or was it? You didn't notice, but now you do notice. And now the lump is a new reality. And since then, since you discovered the lump, there is the exploration, there is the fear, there is the nagging pain, there is the surgery. Reality, reality, reality. Reality of the cancer, reality of family, of friends and carers, the reality of your body, your mind, your faith, your loss of faith. And there is the reality of the anxiety. Yes. He said, it's aggressive. He said, I could have 6 months. How will I cope? How will I live a life that will go from me over the next 6 months? There's part of the anxiety. Or another person said to me, I've done very well. Diagnosed 26 years ago. Treated then. Now it's back. The local prowling cat has 7 lives. I'm up to number 3. Is there any room to hope for 4 more? Another person said he had advanced cancers in the liver, the lungs, and then his heart packed up. And the young doctor asked, will we resuscitate him? And the senior doctor replied, we could, but should we? Why keep him alive when he's going to suffer more? But the family don't want him to die. Of course not. But he will soon die anyway. I wonder what he would want. What would we want if we were in his bed? The reality I'm speaking about today is the reality of afterwards, after the diagnosis, after the relapse, after the double complications, after a life is over, after a death. The reality, 2 years, 6 years, 5 years, fighting the disease, succumbing, recovering, and the final days. The reality, 2 years, 6 years, 10 years, grief, bereavement, afterwards. And the tasks, dealing with the emptiness, the images of our mind, the memories of the mind, dwelling on the past, trying to get some focus into the future. It eludes us. And then we wonder, what is the best way to remember those who have gone? How do we live with all of this? How do you live with it all? The sickness, the suffering, all bad enough, but now there's aching sadness. The scriptures said this morning in a mythological language, if you read your Bible, it said, all these things, sickness and pain and suffering, will be no more. I've retranslated those words to say, because the reality is there will be more. And it's how the reality that we need to face is how can we ensure that the suffering and the sickness and the pain do not have an overwhelming hold on us. And so I come to the 2 issues before us today. How do we strengthen the human spirit to deal with the cancers of our life and the afterwards, whatever the afterwards might be? How do we strengthen the human spirit? And the second thing I'd like to talk about is how do we soften the human spirit? So let's talk about that first of all. Softening of the human spirit. It comes along 4 pathways. I'd like you to follow these pathways. First, there is the pathway of inner wisdom. Dr. W.B. Stewart, in his book, Deep Medicine, I've talked about it before, he wrote this: each of us needs to escape the incessant noise that surrounds us. Each of us needs to escape for a time our sorrows, our everyday business, the social chatter, the mass media. Each of us needs to escape, to create the opening, to connect with our inner wisdom. Do you see any similarity in those words with the gospel reading we had today, where Jesus, on hearing of the tragedy, went away into a quiet place to reconnect with that wisdom? So I want to add to that, connecting with an inner wisdom, to connecting with a good wisdom around us, to connecting with wise people. The wisdom that we feel and know is the wisdom of the good spirit of life. We need to connect with it. We're often too much caught up in our various hostilities that have come to characterize what some people call the fighting spirit of our daily social and political life. In these recent times, we've heard so much of this hostility and anger in our public life. Hostility and hate and that humorless discourse. Anxiety, the anxiety of those things, tighten our body, frees our mind, pulls the goodness out of our generous spirit. We're told to fight the disease. We're told to fight your depression, to fight the disillusionment, to fight the recurring grief. You can hear the words fight, tight, right, might, all run together in an unhealthy society, creating unhealthy human beings. Instead, consider the softening that is contained in one word: compassion. One man in his older years came to see me some time ago. His life had several disasters, 2 marriages, quite a lot of chaos, a lot of anger, and many issues not closed off for 20 years. For all that, he's a very caring person. And despite his personal life being in such turmoil, he has wanted to be a caring person to others. I said to him, "You've overlooked one important thing. You've forgotten to care for yourself. You fight your battles, but it's time to open the door for your self-compassion to flow." He said, "I've never thought of that." So I quote Dean Ornish again, the cardiologist, who said, "Anger closes the heart. Compassion is a doorway to an open heart." We ought to almost adopt those words as a mantra. Anger closes the heart. Compassion is a doorway to an open heart. The hardest part, said Dr. Ornish, the hardest part is to have compassion for yourself. With self-compassion, you can stop driving with your headlights on full beam, drop them to a warmer, softer glow, softening the human spirit. The second thing, soften the human spirit by learning the art, learning the skill of self-soothing. I've said it again and again. We're often into blaming other people. We need to soothe ourselves. We often expect other people to soothe it. We need to soothe ourselves. We need to use what Dr. Stewart called deep minutes, directed at the experience of calmness, appreciation, gratitude, anger control, stress reduction, deep listening, waiting for inspiration, creativity, imagination. Part of the self-soothing, deep minutes. And the third thing to soften the spirit is to recenter the human spirit as the center and core of yourself. This core self holds within it our basic need for those best values and beliefs, our basic need for those best values and beliefs concerning the meaning and purpose of our life. Beliefs about the world and the persisting research. Search and research to realize your fullest potential. 3 things to soften the human spirit. The softening of the human spirit, that takes strengths. So what strengths will we find? We know that cancer is an invasion of the body. Loss of life is a trauma that affects the whole social space as well as ourselves. Grief is a deep aggravation of body and mind. But coping is a regathering of the coherence of the self. Living with cancer, living after loss, coping within our various contexts. What strengths do we need? Now, in the religious context, strength is often an exhortation. The Bible says, be strong in the Lord. But we're not sure how that works in practice. So the words are nice. Other places in the Bible, strength is a belief. Or we sing it in our hymns, O God, our help in ages past. Our help, the Psalm said it too, that God would be our help. It's a belief. Or strength in the biblical terms is a gift, an energy from God, and that energy comes to us and can be renewed. Bible sources pointed to several kinds of strengths. Help and strength from a place beyond ourselves, the God of the hills. Help comes from hope in a new and different future. Help comes from a presence, a good presence. Help comes from caring acts towards people in need. Strength from joining a greater strength. Strength from an image of a different future. Strength from a good model of altruism and generosity. Strength from supportive, caring acts of kindness and nurture. But many people find no strength from those words. No strength from religion at all. Other people from within religious circle have spoken about religion in such general terms that it doesn't tally with our reality. So in my analysis, I can separate out and have separated out many different kinds of strengths. I'm going to talk about 4 of them, even though I could name, and so could you, I think, 16 different kinds of strengths. Let me name 4 strengths that could be a reality for us. We know that we all talk about that strength of overcoming daunting obstacles. The strength to withstand the pain and the suffering. The strength of overcoming adversity. We need that strength. We're often surprised to find we have that strength. The strength to live with and overcome our adversity. That's number 1. Number 2, there is a different strength when we recognize we need a different way to be, a new way to be. We have thought perhaps that strength was something necessary to hold on. Hold on to your beliefs. Hold on to your way of living. Hold on to what you think is important. But strength may be recognizing that you need to look for a different way instead of holding on to your way. Strength may be in letting go and finding a different way. That's the second one. The third way. We can feel overwhelmed by fear, any one of us. You can feel what you truly wanted is being taken away from you, leaving you frightened and alone. There are times when a crisis like that, a confrontation, a distressing circumstance, can open up a pathway to strengths you didn't know you had. Adversity can draw back the curtains to disclose some worthwhile benefits. Many will tell you they lost a lot, but they gained something more precious than they imagined possible. So there's a different strength. Sometimes the fourth strength, sometimes the events we run into diminish us. We look diminished, we feel diminished, we behave as diminished, and we become diminished. But hopefully in that zone of being and feeling and becoming diminished, we will also discover the enhancing resources of what I call the 3 Gs: generosity, growth, and grace. Thereby we can become bigger people in spite of what has happened. That's the fourth strength. It is a transformation from being absorbed into a diminished state, into the negative mind and mood that goes with it. We emerge to embrace the positive health, the health-enhancing emotions and behavior of generosity, growth, and grace. These are deeply ingrained into the best religions. We know that. They can become strength that can transcend all the attractions and power of that hostility and hate. They are strength that lift humanity onto a higher level. They are the strength that affect the human spirit, and they transform our way of living with the realities of life and through the realities of life. So let me recap where we've been. I said there are 3 softeners for the human spirit: tapping our inner wisdom, learning the skill of self-soothing, recentering our core self. And I said there are 4 strengths for the human spirit. Of course, there is the strength that helps us overcome adversity. There is a strength of realizing a different way to be. There is a strength that comes out of the crisis. And there is a strength of rediscovering, perhaps discovering for the first time, something very precious within us, something very precious that comes from beyond us: generosity, growth, and grace. Would you please stand?